thought for the day. Once you have accepted your flaws, no one can use them against you.
Welcome to 7 Minutes for Yourself. I'm Christina Aina, and I'm so glad you've joined me for what I believe will be 7 of the most enriching minutes of your day. Let's take this time to reconnect with ourselves and improve our well-being.
In today's episode of 7 Minutes for Yourself, we are learning to recognize procrastination as an anxiety response and then moving from that anxiety to excitement. Have a listen.
Let me ask you a bit of a rhetorical question. What is the opposite of hot? You would say it's cold. What is the opposite of cold? You would say it's hot. But here's the thing. When does hot start becoming cold? 50 degrees, 40 degrees, 39 degrees, 38? You can't really put a definite point on that. It's a sliding scale. That's because hot and cold in this example are the same thing on a spectrum, temperature. So if anxiety and fear is your root, what spectrum is that emotion on? Right? You feel the procrastination come up, your amygdala's firing off, fight, flight, or freeze. That's an emotion you're experiencing. What is the opposite of that? It's excitement. Excitement and anxiety are on the same spectrum, the same emotion, just manifested differently in you. You can be anxious about working out, or you can be excited to transform your body. You can be anxious about dating, meeting someone, or you can be excited to find someone that you vibe with and you get to spend a lot of time with. You can be anxious and fearful of work and procrastinate, or you can be excited to crush a project. Anxiety is all about looking at the future and doing a negative visualization of all the things that could go wrong. And so of course you procrastinate on that. You don't want it to go wrong. But excitement is looking at the future and seeing the possibilities that could go right. And once you tap into that, you're motivated. Here's a quick story to tie this point together for you. I've been on YouTube now for over 10 years. And I remember when I was getting started, I had a lot of fear around creating videos, creating content. And it was because I felt that I had to do things perfect. I had to be perfect. I had to say the perfect lines. I had to recite it, and then I'd post it and it'd get like 200 views. And I'm like, what's the point? And you know what happened? As a result of that energy, it was flatline growth for like 2-3 years. And it was brutal. It was a grind. Which, side point, very common term you hear entrepreneurs use. Oh, I'm grinding so hard. Well, just think about that word grind. Do you really want to be grinding? Like, if you have a salt shaker, what do you do to that? You grind it down to the smallest possible kernel. That's what you're doing to yourself when you're grinding. I felt ground down. But then I said, if I'm gonna quit, why don't I approach this with a totally different energy? Why don't I only make content that I'm like genuinely excited about? Things that I was curious on, things that I could talk about with minimal prep and that just felt right from the core. And after doing that in late 2019, early 2020, that's when we started to experience the hockey stick growth. And I'm not saying that to brag, I'm not saying that to flex, but we reached over 1 million subscribers because I was able to go from force into power, from anxiety about the content to genuine excitement. And once you do that, the procrastination dissipates and you're amped to do it. Remember, procrastination is an anxiety symptom. It's about looking at the future and seeing what could go wrong. Next time you need to catch yourself, flip it, get excited, tap into that in some way by focusing on what could go right, how it could benefit you and others. And so even though you don't have it yet, you have to find a way to tap into that excitement, and it will come. Now let's tackle the myth that procrastination is a lazy person's problem. I procrastinate, I'm just lazy, I have no willpower, no motivation. That's not actually true, because the people who struggle with procrastination the most, if you read about this, PhD students, engineers, entrepreneurs, people who have a lot of high stakes responsibilities and pressure. Being lazy is caring too little, but you might procrastinate because of the opposite. You care too much. You know what another word for procrastinator is? Perfectionist. Sometimes people use this as like a badge of honor, like, I'm a perfectionist, man, I used to say the same thing. And then I realized being a perfectionist is the laziest thing you can be. Once you realize this, it'll set you free. Being a perfectionist gives you an easy out to not try, to not do anything, to do a little, so you're not judged. The way you get over procrastination and perfectionism, which are kind of the same thing, is by releasing control, by letting go. You can't control the outcome, especially if you're making art. You just can't. It might be great, it might suck. It might get tons of praise. It might go radio silent. You might fail. You might look amazing.
That concludes today's episode of 7 Minutes for Yourself. Please take a moment to rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts. Today and every day with your kiddo is a gift. Enjoy it. Thanks for tuning in.